It was a chilly evening in Manhattan, and the air buzzed with excitement. The city's elite had gathered at one of the most exclusive charity galas of the year. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting soft golden light over tables, adorned with pristine white tablecloths and towering flower arrangements. Waiters glided through the room, balancing trays of champagne flutes as guests mingled, their laughter filling the space like music. Among the attendees was Jeff Bezos, the man who turned an online bookstore into a global empire worth billions. He walked into the room with his usual confidence, dressed sharply in a tailored suit. By his side was Sánchez, his girlfriend and business partner. She looked radiant, smiling graciously as cameras clicked around them. Together they made quite the power couple. Two people used to being in control, whether it was running companies or commanding attention. But this night wasn't just about Jeff and Lauren. Another figure loomed large in the background, someone whose reputation for speaking her mind had earned both admiration and enemies. Karoline Leavitt, a political commentator known for her sharp wit and unfiltered opinions, was scheduled to give the keynote speech. Her arrival sent ripples through the crowd. People whispered behind their hands, wondering what she might say. Would she stick to safe topics, or would she drop another bombshell? As the event began, everyone took their seats. The chatter died down, replaced by anticipation. A hush fell over the room when Karoline stepped onto the stage. She wore a bold, red dress that seemed to match her fiery personality. With a confident smile, she adjusted the microphone and greeted the audience. At first, her words were measured, thanking organizers and praising the importance of philanthropy. But then, something shifted. She paused, scanning the room with piercing eyes. When her gaze landed on Sánchez, there was a flicker, a brief moment where tension crackled in the air. No one knew it yet, but those few seconds marked the beginning of a storm that would rock not just this room, but the entire world outside. Karoline started talking about power. Not the kind measured in dollars or social media followers, but real influence, the ability to shape ideas and change lives. Power, she said, leaning slightly forward, is intoxicating. But so is accountability. Her tone grew sharper, more pointed. The casual banter vanished, replaced by a steely resolve. Then came the moment no one saw coming. Without naming names directly, Karoline launched into a critique that left little doubt about whom she was addressing. Some people think they can trade fame for relevance, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like glass breaking. But let's be honest. What exactly has some individuals contributed beyond tabloid headlines? The room froze. You could hear a pin drop. Sánchez sat stiffly, her face unreadable, but her knuckles gripping the edge of the table gave away her discomfort. Across from her, Jeff Bezos clenched his jaw, his expression darkening. Karoline didn't stop there. She went on, delivering lines that would soon become infamous. Riding someone else's coattails doesn't make you innovative, it just makes you irrelevant. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances, while others leaned forward, phones raised to capture every second. Lauren forced a polite smile, though her eyes betrayed anger simmering beneath the surface. Beside her, Jeff looked like he wanted to stand up and leave, but pride kept him seated. By the time Karoline wrapped up her speech, the atmosphere in the room had transformed completely. What had started as a glamorous evening now felt charged with electricity. As she stepped off the stage, applause erupted, though it was mixed with murmurs of disbelief. Outside the venue, reporters waited eagerly for reactions. Phones buzzed with texts and calls as snippets of Karoline's speech spread like wildfire. Social media lit up almost instantly with hashtags trending worldwide. Inside, Lauren excused herself quietly, disappearing into a private corner. Jeff followed close behind, his face still taut with barely concealed rage. No one realized it then, but this single speech would set off a chain reaction that none of them could have predicted. Friendships would be tested, reputations would hang in, the balance and secrets long buried would come tumbling out into the open. For now, though, the calm before the storm had ended, and the real drama was just beginning. What happened next would leave everyone asking, Was it bravery or recklessness that drove Karoline to speak her truth? And how far would Jeff Bezos go to protect the people and the image he held dear? The gala hall was still buzzing from Karoline's opening remarks when she leaned into the microphone again, her voice steady but dripping with purpose. She wasn't just speaking anymore. She was delivering a message, one that felt like it had been brewing for a long time. Her eyes scanned the crowd, landing briefly on Lauren Sánchez once more before she continued. "Let's talk about authenticity," she said, her tone shifting slightly. "In a world where everyone is trying to be something they're not, authenticity matters more than ever." She paused, letting the words sink in. The room grew quieter, almost as if people were holding their breath. But here's the thing. You can't fake authenticity. You either have it or you don't. At this point, it was clear Karoline wasn't just making general observations. Every word seemed directed at someone specific, and everyone knew who that someone was. Lauren shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her forced smile starting to crack under the weight of the spotlight. Cameras flashed wildly as photographers tried to capture her reaction. Karoline didn't let up. "Some people think they can trade fame for relevance," she repeated, her voice firmer now. "They step into the spotlight because they've hitched their wagon to someone else's star. But let's call it what it is. Relevance isn't inherited. It's earned." The audience collectively held its breath. There was no mistaking the target of her comments now. Lauren's face flushed red, though she tried to maintain her composure. Jeff, sitting beside her, looked like he wanted to interrupt, but protocol and pride kept him rooted in his chair. Then came the knockout punch. Karoline took a deep breath, her gaze locking onto Lauren across the room. "Riding someone else's coattails doesn't make you innovative," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "It just makes you irrelevant." The room erupted in gasps. Some guests exchanged shocked glances while others scribbled notes furiously or tapped on their phones to share the moment online. A few people even clapped, though quickly stopped when they realized how tense the atmosphere had become. Lauren's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her glass of water. She took a sip, trying to steady herself, but her discomfort was palpable. Jeff placed a reassuring hand on hers, but his own jaw was clenched so tightly it looked like it might crack. He stared straight ahead, avoiding eye contact with anyone, especially Karoline. Meanwhile, Karoline stood confidently on stage, unfazed by the chaos she'd unleashed. If anything, she seemed emboldened by the reactions around her. She wrapped up her speech with one final remark that left no room for misinterpretation. "Authenticity matters more than wealth," she declared, her voice ringing out loud and clear. "And if you're going to play in the big leagues, you better bring your A game, not just your Instagram followers." As she stepped away from the podium, the room remained eerily silent for a moment before erupting into hushed conversations. Guests whispered excitedly, dissecting every word Karoline had said. Some defended her, saying she was simply calling out hypocrisy. Others criticized her, accusing her of being unnecessarily harsh. Back at their table, Lauren excused herself, quietly, slipping out of the room with as much dignity as she could muster. Jeff followed shortly after, his expression unreadable but clearly troubled. Reporters outside swarmed them as they exited, shouting questions about Karoline's speech. Neither of them responded, choosing instead to climb into their waiting car and speed off into the night. Inside the venue, Karoline mingled casually with other guests, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. When asked about her comments, she shrugged nonchalantly. "I'm just telling the truth," she told one reporter with a sly smile. "Sometimes the truth hurts." By the time the event ended, video clips of Karoline's speech were already flooding social media. Hashtags like #TruthBomb and Lauren Exposed began trending within minutes, sparking heated debates across platforms. Supporters praised Karoline for her courage, calling her remarks refreshingly honest. Critics accused her of jealousy and petty jabs, questioning her motives. Despite the backlash, Karoline appeared unfazed. In fact, she seemed to thrive on the attention. Later that evening, she posted a cryptic tweet. When you live your life authentically, you'll always have critics. But remember, they wouldn't bother if you weren't worth their time. As the hours passed, the drama only intensified. Friends of Lauren revealed that she spent the rest of the night venting to Jeff over the phone, demanding action against Karoline. For Jeff, this wasn't just an attack on Lauren. It felt deeply personal. He prided himself on controlling the narrative, and Karoline's words threatened to unravel everything he'd worked so hard to build. By morning, the story had exploded. News outlets picked it up, running headlines like "Charity Gala turns into war zone" and "Billionaire feud erupts over brutal speech." Analysts debated whether Karoline's comments would harm her career or elevate her status even further. Meanwhile, Lauren retreated from public view, canceling several high-profile appearances scheduled for the coming weeks. What started as a single speech at a charity gala had spiraled into something much bigger, a clash of egos, reputations, and ideologies. And while Karoline may have dropped the initial bombshell, it was clear that this was far from over. Jeff Bezos, a man known for his calculated approach to conflict, suddenly found himself on edge. Friends described him as unusually rattled, obsessively checking updates on his phone and firing off emails late into the night. Sources close to him claimed he was determined to retaliate, though exactly how remained unclear. For Karoline, the fallout only fueled her determination. She gave interviews doubling down on her remarks, refusing to apologize or backpedal. "I'm not here to coddle egos," she told one journalist. "If you want to sit at the grown-ups table, you need to earn your seat." As tensions escalated, the feud captured the world's attention. Social media users weighed in with memes, hot takes, and conspiracy theories. Late-night talk show hosts joked about the drama, turning it into entertainment. And behind closed doors, both sides prepared for round two, a battle that promised to reveal even more explosive secrets. But amidst all the noise, one question lingered. How far would Jeff go to protect Lauren and his own legacy? And was Karoline ready to face the consequences of taking on one of the most powerful men in the world? The calm before the storm had ended, and now the real fight was just beginning. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Karoline's words had already taken on a life of their own. Social media was ablaze with reactions, memes, and endless threads, dissecting every syllable she'd uttered at the gala. Clips of her speech were shared millions of times, each one accompanied by captions like "mic drop moment" or "the truth hurts." Supporters hailed her as a fearless truth-teller who dared to call out hypocrisy in high places. Critics, however, painted her as reckless and vindictive, accusing her of using personal attacks for publicity. For Lauren Sánchez, the fallout was brutal. Overnight, she became the center of a global conversation she hadn't asked for. Her social media profiles were flooded with comments, some defending her, others mocking her. Memes comparing her to various pop culture figures circulated widely, many of them unkind. Friends close to her revealed that she spent hours scrolling through posts, reading every comment and article about herself. Each negative remark felt like another blow chipping away at her confidence. Jeff Bezos wasn't spared either. As the man standing firmly behind Lauren, he found himself dragged into the fray. People speculated about his role in the situation, questioning whether his immense wealth and influence gave him immunity from criticism, or if it made him an even bigger target. Some accused him of hiding behind his empire while letting Lauren take the heat. Others pointed fingers at him directly, suggesting that his actions, or lack thereof, had created this mess in the first place. Meanwhile, Karoline leaned fully into the chaos. She appeared on morning talk shows, late-night programs, and podcasts, fielding questions with ease. When pressed about her intentions, she shrugged it off. "I didn't come there to start a war," she said during one interview. "But sometimes when you tell the truth, people get uncomfortable. That's not my problem, it's theirs." Her boldness only added fuel to the fire. Supporters rallied around her, praising her willingness to speak up where others stayed silent. Critics doubled down too, accusing her of grandstanding and exploiting the situation for clout. Yet no matter how heated the debate got, Karoline never backed down. If anything, she seemed energized by the pushback, feeding off the attention, like a seasoned performer. Behind the scenes, Jeff and Lauren scrambled to figure out their next move. For Jeff, this wasn't just about protecting Lauren, it was about preserving his image. He prided himself on being untouchable, someone who could navigate controversies without breaking a sweat. But this time felt different. Karoline's words had struck a nerve, exposing vulnerabilities he preferred to keep hidden. Lauren, on the other hand, struggled to cope. According to insiders, she spent hours venting to Jeff over the phone, alternating between anger and tears. She felt blindsided, betrayed by someone she barely knew, but whose words now dominated her every thought. Friends described her as heartbroken and humiliated, unable to shake off the embarrassment. Determined to fight back, Jeff called an emergency meeting with his inner circle. Lawyers, publicists, and trusted advisors gathered in a private conference room to strategize. The goal was clear: neutralize the damage before it spiraled further out of control. Ideas flew across the table, everything from issuing a formal statement to filing lawsuits against Karoline. One suggestion stood out: use the Washington Post, the newspaper Jeff owned, to publish an expose questioning Karoline's credibility. It wouldn't be a direct attack, they reasoned, but rather a clever way to undermine her authority. By digging into her past, they could highlight inconsistencies or exaggerations that might cast doubt on her character. Jeff liked the idea. Within hours, reporters at the Washington Post received orders to investigate Karoline's background thoroughly. They combed through old interviews, speeches, and social media posts, searching for anything that could be used against her. The piece was scheduled to run within days, ensuring maximum impact. When news of the planned expose leaked, Karoline wasted no time responding. During a live TV appearance, she addressed the rumors head-on. "Let me guess. They're going after me because I spoke the truth?" she quipped, rolling her eyes dramatically. Classic move. Instead of addressing what I said, they're trying to discredit the messenger. But here's the thing: you can't silence the truth forever. Her defiance only intensified the drama. Supporters urged her to release more details, claiming she must have dirt on Jeff and Lauren if they were coming after her so aggressively. Karoline played coy, hinting at secrets without revealing specifics. "There's a lot I could say," she teased during another interview, "but I'll let them hang themselves first." As the days passed, the feud consumed the internet. Hashtags, like a truth bomb and like accountability. Matters trended daily, sparking debates across platforms. Even celebrities weighed in, some defending Karoline's right to speak freely, others criticizing her for crossing a line. Late-night comedians turned the saga into material for their monologues, keeping the story alive in popular culture. But amid all the noise, cracks began to show. Advertisers started pulling sponsorships from Karoline's projects, citing concerns over controversy. Brands didn't want to associate with someone embroiled in such a public feud, fearing backlash from customers. For Karoline, this was a blow, but not one she couldn't handle. "I knew speaking the truth would come with consequences," she admitted during a podcast appearance. "But I'm not here to please everyone. My job is to hold people accountable, even if it costs me deals or partnerships. At the end of the day, integrity matters more than money." Her words resonated with many, especially those who admired her courage. Donations poured into her Patreon page, with fans vowing to support her work regardless of corporate pressure. Meanwhile, critics dismissed her stance as performative, accusing her of prioritizing drama over substance. For Jeff and Lauren, the stakes kept rising. Every attempt to reclaim control seemed to backfire, drawing more attention to the feud. Friends warned Jeff that escalating the conflict might do more harm than good, urging him to consider de-escalation instead. But pride, and perhaps fear of appearing weak, kept him from backing down. As tensions mounted, whispers spread about secret meetings involving lawyers and PR teams. Rumors swirled that Jeff had reached out to influential figures in Hollywood and politics, asking them to distance themselves from Karoline. Whether these efforts bore fruit remained unclear, but one thing was certain: both sides were preparing for round two, And so, the saga continued, capturing the world's attention with each new twist and turn. What started as a single speech at a charity gala had morphed into a full-blown battle of egos, reputations, and ideologies. Neither side showed signs of relenting, leaving everyone wondering how far things would go before someone blinked. The calm before the storm had long since passed, replaced by a relentless tempest of words, accusations, and counterattacks. And, as the world watched, one question lingered in the air. Who would emerge victorious in this high-stakes game of power and perception? If there's one thing Jeff Bezos was known for, it was his ability to fight back. He didn't rise to the top of the business world by sitting idly when things got tough. This feud with Karoline wasn't just about protecting Lauren, it was personal now. Every word she'd said at that gala felt like a direct attack on his empire, his reputation, and everything he stood for. And Jeff wasn't about to let anyone undermine him without consequences. The first move came swiftly. Within days, the Washington Post published a scathing exposé questioning Karoline's credibility. The article dissected her career, pointing out past controversies and moments where she had been accused of exaggerating facts. It highlighted quotes from critics who called her reckless and self-serving, painting her as someone more interested in attention than accountability. The timing couldn't have been better, or worse depending on how you looked at it. The piece dropped during prime news hours, ensuring maximum visibility. Social media lit up instantly, with people debating whether the article was fair or simply a smear campaign. Supporters of Karoline were quick to defend her, accusing the newspaper of bias and claiming it was nothing more than a desperate attempt to silence her. Critics, on the other hand, ate it up, using the article as ammunition to discredit her further. Karoline, true to form, didn't stay quiet. She fired back almost immediately, posting a video online addressing the claims. Sitting casually in front of her laptop, she smirked into the camera. "Wow, they really pulled out the big guns, huh?" she said sarcastically. "An entire article dedicated to tearing me down. I guess I must be doing something right." She went on to break down each point made in the exposé, countering accusations with sharp wit and humor. When the article claimed she lacked integrity, she laughed outright. "Integrity is standing by your principles even when it costs you," she shot back. "If calling out hypocrisy means losing sponsorships, then so be it. At least I can sleep at night knowing I didn't sell my soul for clicks." Her response resonated with many, especially those who admired her boldness. Donations poured into her platforms again, with fans vowing to support her work no matter what. But the backlash also intensified. Advertisers continued pulling sponsorships, citing concerns over associating with someone embroiled in such public drama. For Karoline, this was a double-edged sword. Her message reached more people, but her financial stability took a hit. Jeff wasn't done yet. Behind the scenes, he reportedly reached out to influential figures in Hollywood and politics, urging them to distance themselves from Karoline. Sources close to him claimed he made phone calls and sent emails, warning allies that associating with her could damage their own reputations. Whether these efforts worked remains unclear, but rumors spread quickly about doors closing in Karoline's face. Still, Karoline refused to back down. If anything, she leaned harder into the conflict, using every opportunity to jab at Jeff and Lauren. During a live interview, she hinted at skeletons in their closet, teasing secrets that could make the current drama look tame. "Let's just say there's a lot I know that hasn't come out yet," she said cryptically. "And trust me, the truth always finds a way to surface." Her comments sent shockwaves through the internet. Speculation ran wild, with conspiracy theories popping up left and right. Some believed she was bluffing, while others thought she genuinely had dirt on Jeff and Lauren. Either way, her words kept everyone glued to the unfolding saga. Meanwhile, Jeff's empire began showing signs of strain. Employees at Amazon whispered nervously about his erratic behavior, describing him as distracted and short-tempered. Executives reportedly grew concerned about the impact of the feud on the company's image, fearing shareholders might lose confidence if negative press continued. Lauren, too, struggled under the weight of the spotlight. Despite staying mostly Out of view, she couldn't escape the constant scrutiny. Friends revealed that she spent hours strategizing with PR teams, trying to repair her damaged reputation. She even considered releasing a statement addressing the situation but ultimately decided against it, fearing it might only add fuel to the fire. Amid all the chaos, one thing became clear. Neither side was willing to back down. Jeff threw his resources into silencing Karoline, leveraging his vast network of connections and media outlets. Karoline, on the other hand, embraced the underdog role, rallying supporters and doubling down on her message of authenticity and accountability. As the feud dragged on, collateral damage mounted, relationships soured, careers teetered, and reputations hung precariously in the balance. Even those not directly involved found themselves caught in the crossfire, forced to pick sides or risk being labeled disloyal. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, both Jeff and Karoline seemed determined to see this through to the end. For Jeff, it was about protecting his legacy and proving he was still untouchable. For Karoline, it was about standing by her principles, even if it meant sacrificing comfort and security. And so, the battle raged on, captivating audiences around the world. What started as a single speech at a charity gala had spiraled into a full-blown war of egos, ideologies, and power plays. Neither side showed signs of relenting, leaving everyone wondering how and when it would finally come to an end. For, now though, the tension remained palpable, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. As the feud between Jeff and Karoline dragged on, it became painfully clear that this wasn't just a clash of two powerful personalities. It was a storm affecting everyone around them. The ripple effects spread far beyond the initial drama, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. For starters, employees at Amazon began to feel the strain. Normally, working for such a massive company meant stability and structure. But lately, things felt different. Whispers traveled through office hallways about Jeff's mood swings. Some said he seemed distracted, snapping at meetings or disappearing for hours without explanation. Others noticed executives huddling behind closed doors more often than usual, their faces tense as they discussed damage control strategies. One employee described the atmosphere as walking on eggshells. Nobody wanted to say the wrong thing or draw attention to themselves. Productivity took a hit as workers spent more time speculating about the latest headlines than focusing on their tasks. Rumors swirled that layoffs might be on the horizon if profits dipped due to negative press. For many, the uncertainty was almost worse than the conflict itself. Lauren, too, bore the brunt of the fallout. Despite her best efforts to stay out of the spotlight, she couldn't escape the constant scrutiny. Every move she made or didn't make was analyzed and dissected online. Friends revealed that she had canceled several high-profile appearances, opting instead to lay low and avoid further controversy. But staying quiet came with its own challenges. Critics accused her of hiding, suggesting she lacked the courage to face the music. Supporters, meanwhile, urged her to take a stand, arguing that silence only fueled the narrative against her. Trapped between these opposing forces, Lauren struggled to find her footing. According to insiders, she spent hours strategizing with PR teams, trying to craft a response that wouldn't backfire. She even toyed with the idea of releasing a heartfelt statement addressing the situation head-on. Ultimately, though, fear of making things worse kept her from speaking publicly. Instead, she retreated further into private life, leaving fans and foes alike to speculate about her next move. Karoline, on the other hand, faced a different kind of collateral damage. While her message resonated deeply with supporters, not everyone rallied behind her cause. Advertisers continued pulling sponsorships, citing concerns over associating with someone embroiled in such public drama. Brands worried about alienating customers who disagreed with her stance, forcing her to rely heavily on donations and grassroots support. Financially, it wasn't easy. Karoline admitted during a podcast appearance that she'd lost lucrative partnerships because of the feud, yet she refused to see it as a defeat. "If standing by your principles costs you deals, then so be it," she said firmly. "At least, I know I'm doing the right thing, Integrity doesn't come with a price tag. Her resilience inspired many, especially those tired of seeing hypocrisy go unchecked. Fans flooded her social media pages with messages of encouragement, vowing to support her work no matter what. Some even organized crowdfunding campaigns to help offset the financial losses she'd incurred, but not everyone viewed her actions favorably. Critics accused her of prioritizing drama over substance, claiming her words were more performative than meaningful. Late-night comedians turned her into a punchline, poking fun at her sharp tongue and unrelenting approach. Even some former allies distanced themselves, fearing association with her might tarnish their own reputations. Amid all the chaos, friendships were tested, and sometimes broken. People close to both sides found themselves caught in an impossible position, forced to choose allegiances or risk being labeled disloyal. One mutual acquaintance described the experience as heartbreaking, saying they felt torn between supporting old friends and navigating newfound tensions. Even outside, observers weren't immune to the impact. Journalists covering the saga grew weary of the endless twists and turns, joking that reporting on it felt like running on a treadmill. You never actually got anywhere. Meanwhile, everyday people debated passionately on social media, turning the feud into a cultural touchstone. Memes, hashtags, and conspiracy theories dominated timelines, keeping the story alive long after most expected it to fade. As weeks turned into months, the toll became undeniable. Stress levels soared, tempers flared, and relationships frayed under the weight of relentless pressure. Both Jeff and Karoline showed signs of fatigue, though neither was willing to admit defeat. Jeff reportedly confided in close friends that the situation weighed heavily on him. For someone accustomed to controlling narratives, watching events spiral out of his grasp must have felt unbearable. He threw himself into work, using long hours at the office as a distraction. Yet even there, reminders of the feud lingered in whispered conversations among employees, in critical headlines about his handling of the crisis, and in the growing sense that his carefully curated image was cracking. Karoline, too, admitted privately that the fight had taken a toll. Speaking truth to power wasn't easy, especially when power fought back with everything it had. Late nights, endless interviews, and constant attacks left her exhausted, but she remained steadfast, driven by a belief that accountability mattered more than comfort. And so, the saga rolled on, leaving a trail of collateral damage in its wake. Friendships faltered, careers teetered, and reputations hung precariously in the balance. Yet, despite the mounting costs, neither side showed signs of relenting. For now, the battlefield remained active, a testament to the human cost of pride, ego, and the pursuit of justice. As the world watched, one question loomed, large. How much longer could this go on before someone finally blinked? The answer, it seemed, lay just around the corner. Months had passed since the explosive charity gala that set this whole saga in motion. The world had been glued to every twist and turn, waiting for the final chapter of this high-stakes feud. But as time went on, it became clear that resolutions rarely come neatly wrapped, especially when egos, power, and pride are involved. Jeff Bezos, ever the strategist, finally broke his silence. In a carefully worded statement released through the Washington Post, he called for peace and mutual respect. He stopped short of apologizing or acknowledging any wrongdoing, but signaled a desire to move past the drama. "We live in a world where accountability is important," he wrote, "but so is grace. Let's focus on building bridges instead of tearing each other down." To some, the statement felt like an olive branch, a sign that Jeff was ready to put the feud behind him. To others, it read like a calculated retreat, a way to save face without admitting defeat. Either way, it marked a shift in tone. For months, Jeff had been throwing everything he had at Karoline, from exposés to whispered campaigns. Now it seemed he was stepping back, perhaps realizing the fight wasn't worth the cost. Karoline, too, softened her approach, slightly. During an interview shortly after Jeff's statement, she acknowledged that her words may have crossed a line. "I stand by what I said," she clarified, "but maybe there's a better way to say it next time. My goal has always been to hold people accountable, not to hurt them personally." Her comments sparked mixed reactions. Supporters praised her for showing maturity, while critics accused her of trying to rewrite history. Still, the fact that she even addressed the issue signaled a willingness to dial things down, at least publicly. Behind closed doors, though, things weren't quite as peaceful. Insiders revealed that tensions between both sides lingered beneath the surface. While they had agreed to stop escalating the feud publicly, private grievances remained unresolved. Friends of Jeff described him as still seething over the damage done to his reputation. Meanwhile, Karoline continued making subtle jabs whenever possible, ensuring the feud stayed fresh in everyone's minds. In a surprising twist, Karoline announced plans to launch a podcast focused on accountability and transparency in leadership. She teased the project during one of her interviews, calling it a platform for truth-tellers. Fans immediately connected the dots, seeing it as another jab at Jeff and Lauren. After all, what better way to keep the pressure on than by dedicating an entire show to exposing hypocrisy? The announcement reignited debates online. Some applauded her for using her platform to spark meaningful conversations, while others dismissed the idea as just another publicity stunt. Regardless, anticipation for the podcast grew, with fans eagerly awaiting its debut. As the dust settled, or appeared to settle, the collateral damage became clearer. Employees at Amazon breathed a sigh of relief as the spotlight shifted away from their company. Executives quietly worked to repair the cracks in morale, organizing team-building events and sending out reassuring memos about job security. Lauren, meanwhile, slowly began re-emerging into public life. She made a few low-key appearances, smiling politely for cameras but avoiding interviews. Friends claimed she was focusing on self-care, spending time with loved ones, and working on personal projects. Whether this newfound quiet was a sign of healing or simply a strategic move remained unclear. For Karoline, the financial hit from lost sponsorships continued to sting, but her grassroots support kept her afloat. Donations poured in from fans, who admired her courage, allowing her to pursue her work without relying on corporate backing. She leaned into her role as a truth-teller, hosting smaller events and engaging directly with supporters. Yet, despite the apparent calm, whispers persisted about unresolved issues. Anonymous emails containing damaging information about Jeff's past dealings reportedly landed in the inboxes of Amazon executives. Though never confirmed, many suspected Karoline was behind the leaks, a parting shot before moving on to her next project. By the end of it all, the feud left a lasting mark on everyone involved. Relationships were strained, reputations tested, and careers altered in ways no one could have predicted. For Jeff, the experience served as a reminder that even the most powerful figures aren't immune to criticism. For Karoline, it reinforced her belief that speaking truth to power comes with risks, but also rewards. And for the rest of us? The saga offered a glimpse into the messy, complicated nature of human conflict. It showed how quickly admiration can turn to animosity, how fragile reputations truly are, and how hard it is to walk away from a fight once it begins. Though the storm eventually passed, its echoes remained. Social media users still reference the feud months later, turning it into memes and cautionary tales. Late-night hosts occasionally cracked jokes about it, keeping the memory alive for audiences who couldn't get enough. In the end, the resolution wasn't so much a conclusion as it was a pause, a brief lull before the next chapter unfolded. Both Jeff and Karoline moved forward, carrying the scars of their battle with them. They circled each other cautiously, aware that another misstep could reignite the flames. So, did the feud really end? Or was it just lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to resurface? No one knew for sure. What was certain, though, was that this clash of titans would be remembered for years to come, a testament to the power of words, the cost of pride, and the enduring allure of drama. And as the world turned its attention elsewhere, one thing was undeniable. The calm after the storm never lasts forever.